Hello, good morning. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Thank you all very much for coming out to this panel for the next hour called Capitalizing on Collaboration, and we're joined by some fantastic guests representing some really interesting projects that we're going to really dive into today. And the intention of this panel is really to take a deep dive into how film commissions and productions can really collaborate to ensure the best possible results during production, but also how that type of collaboration functions in practice and how it can really lead to a much healthier screen sector in Europe and also deliver some real impacts, both economic and also for the places and communities in which these productions are made. My name is Leon Ford. I'm CEO of Olsberg SPI. We're a global consulting firm working in film, television, and digital media. I'm really honored to be moderating this for the European Film Commissions Network. For those of you who don't know, the EUFCN is a non-profit association representing over 100 film commissions nationally and regionally in 33 European countries. It's really a gateway for global filmmakers coming into Europe and for European filmmakers. And the EUFCN fosters networking opportunities between its members and producers. It advocates for the role of film commissions, which are completely pivotal. It also provides expert training, promotes sustainable production, and reinforces knowledge sharing. So I'm going to jump in with a short introduction and let our panelists tell you more about their film commissions and the productions they're here to talk about. And there will be sort of 5-10 minutes at the end for Q&A, so please don't be shy. So just very briefly, and turning first to Solveig from the Midgard Film Commission in Norway, you're here to talk about Billionaire Island, a Netflix show, and that won the EUFCN Location Award 2024, selected by a Location Award jury. To your left, we have Mariana from the Vienna Film Commission, and you're here to talk about the HBO show, The Regime, and particularly the location of Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna, which was, again, a winner of the EUFCN Location Audience Location Award, I should say, chosen by the public. And last but not least, we have Marcus from Studio Babelsberg Motion Pictures and Christiane from Berlin-Brandenburg Film Commission, and you'll be talking to us about your collaboration on Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme. So I'll start with you, Solveig, and if you could give us a sense of how that production came together and the island that it was made on and how you collaborated with the production and what kind of impacts it had. Solveig.
Oh, that's quite a big question. Yes, I'm Midgard Film Commission. That's a whole county, 42,000 square kilometers, so it's quite big. When it comes to Billionaire Island, I have to take you a little bit prior to the production, because it started actually in 2019 when I went to Freya, the island, an island that hasn't had no production before. And I gathered the municipality and the offices of business and said, okay, we have a feature film coming here. They want to film in your island. It was another production called Everybody Hates You One. And I told them, if you are film friendly, give them some incentives, there will be more films coming. Because you have a beautiful island and I see potential. So I have to give them some hard facts, actually, Olsberg's best practice, and I use them. And I have to give them some high hopes. And they are islanders, so when the fish comes, they just jump in the boat. So they hired, they took one of the people in the municipality, a cultural coordinator, and said to her, okay, Mona, when a film production comes, you just let go of everything and help them. And she did. She was on set every day, helped with everything, told them where to go, where not to go, who to talk to, not to talk to, and everything. So after 2019, there were 3 feature films coming, boom, boom, boom. And then they were looking for an island where they had salmon industry. And of course, one of the producers from another film said, okay, then you have to talk to Mona. So it came actually from like word of mouth in the industry. And of course, Mona had directly contacted me all the time. I helped her with everything. She called me, what should I do now? What should I do now? So she became more or less a film commissioner on the island. And they had like very great film friendliness, and also they supported the films coming there. Mm. So Mona was together with the location manager every day, showed them every inch of the island, and yeah, just followed through all the way with me in the background, more or less. Yes. So she was really a key person to this. Yeah.
And what was it about, obviously the island was very relevant because it's a story, if you haven't seen it, about salmon fishing and
yes.
the high drama that occurs when rival families
It's the Billionaire's Island.
Yeah. So how did the island secure the production, and what was the factor that really got the production into the island?
Well, beautiful locations, film friendliness. And I will say Mona being like so heads-on, and really wanted to facilitate and make this work. And then also you have like the local industries, which were like the big salmon industry. They were one of the biggest producers of salmon in the world. They actually opened their doors, which is quite unique. So it was... It just worked,
And was it entirely filmed on the island? Or did it also shoot?
Well, mostly filmed. It was like 4 or 5 weeks filmed on the island, and something in Trondheim and something in Oslo. Mm. So it was mainly filmed on the island, actually. And local homes, everything, yeah.
And during production, it'd be great if you could tell us a bit more about how you worked with the production, what kind of challenges came up during the day-to-day making of the show that were specific to the island, or things that you had to help them solve?
Well, it's of course like getting into the factories to film in there, and to kind of making the trust to these huge factories. And also, I mean, weather is a component. There was one day that were supposed to be nice weather. They were more or less blown away, but that made a very cool scene. So it was a premiere, and the marching band was in the middle of the rain and storm. So you just had to make it work. I mean, that's how it is. You're in an island out in the ocean. You just have to work with what's there. So, but it went quite well, I would say. Yeah.
And for a community that hadn't had a huge amount of filming to have this very large show, was that disruptive? Did you have to sort of advocate for the production, or did they understand that this was a big opportunity for impact?
Well, they were a little bit hesitant in the beginning, but they saw that it gave the island identity, and the municipality and the mayor and everything was like, okay, we'll put it in our strategy plan, and we want this to happen, because they're open people. I think islanders they're used to grabbing opportunity when they go, and it's a short distance between me and the mayor and the stakeholders. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we'll return to that sort of decision-making process, or access to decision makers when we talk about the other projects. Just to mention, Solveig, you mentioned the best practice work, and if anyone's interested, there's a free study that we did called Best Practice in Screen Sector Development, which was undertaken for AFCI, and that's a free report, looks at how to develop infrastructure, incentives, workforce, and so on. So freely available on our website. Solveig, we have a trailer. Would you like to show that now?
Let's see what this looks like.
Okay, yes.
Yes. And in the last pictures there, you saw us wearing a lot of our national costumes.
Right.
It's our Constitution Day today, so they will be wearing these costumes today.
Happy
That's
Constitution
why
Day.
the mayor is not here. She's
Sullivan, got it. Okay, so Mariana, you obviously work in a very different location to a wild island in the middle of the sea. Vienna's, a filmmaking hub. A lot of established locations, established crew, and supply chain. But how did your experience on the regime differ? I mean, this was a very large HBO project. It used a location that I don't think had been filmed much, or maybe not at all, in Schönbrunn Palace. I mean, how did your collaboration begin? How did you secure the project for Vienna, and what was your collaboration on that project like?
There are similarities. So, because we also had to convince them to shoot there. But the rest is different. So Schönbrunn Palace is the most visited touristic spot in all of Austria. They really have a lot of visitors there every day. And there haven't been any kind of filming before. Only in the pandemic, when the castle itself was closed, there was a filming for Corsage by Marie Kreutzer, which also premiered here in Cannes, but only one day, and that was outside. So when HBO approached us, they are looking for palaces in Vienna. If we would have probably palaces where they could film the regime, I said, well, we have so many palaces in Vienna, countless ones. And we showed them some images, and in a very early stage, and their favorite was Schönbrunn. And we said, yeah, interesting. This is really great, but there was never a shooting of this size in Schönbrunn Palace. And we started talking to Schönbrunn Palace, and they were actually really interested in it. We said from the very beginning, this is going to be a huge thing, and probably you have to close down things. And they said, well, come, have a look. And so we organized the scouting for the location manager and the artistic director of the series. And they were also, well, their main location was also Schönbrunn Palace. They showed it to Stephen Frears, the director, and then we organized a director scouting, and it was very clear Schönbrunn, they want Schönbrunn as main location. The good thing is you can combine it with other palaces in Vienna that look similar, also Baroque palace. But it was very clear that this huge, and Schönbrunn Palace is by far the biggest palace in Vienna. They wanted this as main location. And there was a second point that was kind of difficult, where we thought, okay, we do not know if they will allow that. There was a kind of, they wanted actually to change it a little bit. If you have seen the series, this castle has a huge tower in the middle, a digital one, which does not exist in reality. And we were not sure if they would allow that, because it's such a, there's this cultural heritage thing and everything like. But they, they said, yes, you can do that. And so it, it was not possible before, in former years. It's always about people and how they approach things. There was a managing director of Schönbrunn Palace who actually simply didn't want any kind of shooting. And now since 7 or 8 years, there's a new director there. And he's more film friendly. And when the filming was over, they actually realized we can manage that even with a lot of tourists. Somehow it's possible to do it, but it really takes something to organize it.
And how long did the production need or want the palace for? what kind of time frame?
They had actually really filming, because I don't count the days of preparation, but it was filming 10 days.
Okay.
And they had, but they were in Vienna for almost 4 weeks.
And it's interesting thinking about the need for a film commissioner to convince stakeholders, and Solveig, in your case, an island, you know, you're saying that they sort of understood there was an opportunity here to grab some impact. But in the case of the palace, as you say, the most visited tourist attraction in the country. So
yeah, but
how did you...
There was one point, and that was very important. Austria was about to install a film incentive. We were fighting for this together with other film commissioners and the producers for years. And the really terrific moment was we did not know if the incentive would be already installed when they start filming. They started filming by end of January, and the incentive was in place on January 1st. And this was, they were, at HBO, they were really very nervous about this fact, and they constantly asked that, well, will it be on time? Are you really sure? It will work out. And there was one point where I said, well, because then they asked for a letter that will fix the thing, that they will get the money. And I said, nobody will write you a letter like this. You simply have to trust. And we are at this point where either you trust or you leave. It's very simple. If you don't trust us, go for another location. That's what I said, actually, to the HBO guys.
Yeah, and in terms of
they trusted us.
A round of applause for that. But in terms of the convincing...
Yeah, excuse me. Sometimes you have to be very clear to producers or studios. I mean, makes no sense to talk around. Makes no sense.
And actually, we should come back to this, because I think in being realistic, in being honest with your producer collaborators, I think that's going to be a key theme of this discussion. But just a final point on the palace. They...
Actually, that was the working title. Now it's the regime.
The regime, but on Schönbrunn Palace, sorry. In terms of how you convinced the managers of that attraction to maybe close down to tourists, or what was it that convinced them that hosting this production was...
Actually, what kind of convinced them that we said, so you do not have to close down the huge ballroom in the palace, because they could dub that with another palace right in the city center of Vienna.
Got it.
And actually they were filming in Schönbrunn Palace, in Palais Pallavicini, in the Garden Palais of the Liechtensteins, in the City Palais of the Liechtensteins, and in the Winter Palais, the Hofburg.
Got it.
But the main location was Schönbrunn.
Got it. And it sounds like it didn't have to close to the public while the production was using it.
No, they did not. They did not have to close that. But let's say parts of the huge park they had to close when they were filming outside. But, I mean, visitors who come may probably see that the first time. They probably don't know if they have really seen everything of this huge castle.
Yeah.
But it turned out there were some other spots that were more difficult than Schönbrunn, like the Winter Palace of the Schönburgs, the Hofburg. That was really difficult.
Got it. We have a trailer. Would you like to
yes,
show
of
that
course.
now?
Yeah, let's see the trailer.
Since I became your Chancellor, we have grown considerably as a country. It is time to show America and the world precisely what we are worth.
Madam Chancellor, Corporal Zuberg.
You're here because you are nobody. You are not anybody. And that means I can trust you.
Yes, Chief. You will never be in control of this place ever again.
He's not dangerous, is he?
Everything's fine. The Chancellor couldn't be more pleased. And we like it when she's pleased, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Have some pride. Let me do my work and be grateful. Okay?
Okay. Sorry.
Without her, nothing makes sense!
You do have a wonderful way with half-wits, don't you?
Yeah, I'd like to see her.
Is she expecting you?
I'm her husband.
Is she expecting you?
One expects their husband to enter a room.
When I became your Chancellor, I did so with a heavy heart. But just know, you fill me with all the love I'll ever need. And so, I bless you all, and I bless our love, always.
Nice. So moving to Christian and Marcus, your situation is different. It's a feature film. It's not a series, unlike the two previous examples. And I believe for the most part was filmed in a studio in Studio Babelsberg. If you could tell us about, again, your collaboration on this production, and how it came together, and the locations work that you did do, how that worked.
Yeah, we would like to show the trailer first, because we will refer to what you see in the trailer, and I would suggest, so after, I think, 45 seconds, watch the jungle, and then you get further.
Yeah, watch out for the really green bits in there, and that's where the trouble starts. Yeah.
Good tip.
At this moment, rescue workers are laboring to recover and identify the remains of Zsa Korda, international businessman, maverick in the fields of armaments and aviation, among the richest men in Europe. This was Korda's 6th recorded airplane crash. He is survived by 10 children, 9 boys, 1 nun, his daughter Liesel.
I've appointed you sole heir to my estate, which you may come into sooner rather than later.
Why? It's been 6 years since our last meeting.
I have my reasons.
Which are what?
My reasons? I'm not saying. I'm saying I'm not saying. Korda Land and Sea Phoenician Infrastructure Scheme, my most important project of my lifetime.
Our objective, disrupting, obstructing, impeding, crippling Korda's enterprise in any manner possible.
Get the hand grenades. Today, tonight, and tomorrow, we rendezvous with every Titan and pretend we agree what we already agreed. But in fact, we don't. We can't.
Call it.
Heads. Heads.
Is this supposed to be here? It was under the lunch trolley.
Oh dear, who shot you?
Terrorists from out of town. Help yourself to a hand grenade.
You're very kind.
Could you imagine falling in love with a man like me, by the way, hypothetically?
You're drunk on 3 beers.
Why are you shooting my ceiling?
This is a robbery on behalf of...
I understand that. I'm asking about my ceiling. You idiots are destroying a magnificent nightclub.
One thing you'll never know, because you can't. The truth. I suppose I'm moved by this absurd performance. I recognize this assassin.
Oh no.
Suicide pedal.
Where's my father? Take this miserable sin into the company.
It's a fantastic trailer. I mean, tell us about the production.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I'm Marcus Bench from Studio Babelsberg. Studio Babelsberg was the co-producer for the Phoenician Scheme. We've been working with Wes Anderson for the last, I think, 5-6 years. We started with the Grand Budapest Hotel, and then this was the last one, obviously. It was pushed during the writer's strike, so it was supposed to have been shot in 23, and so they pushed it for a year, and then it was shot in 24, which gave us a bit more time, but obviously it cost a bit of money to keep everybody on board, or some people on board anyway. So in this trailer, and I mentioned that earlier, the green stuff, the jungle stuff, everybody or anybody who has been to the Berlin Film Festival knows that Berlin is not a tropical island. Yeah. So, and that is, as I just mentioned, so that is where the real challenges started. From the trailer, you've seen a couple of locations. Usually it was like 90% on set in the studio, and the other 10% were on location, like the desert, the cornfield, and the jungle. And we had the most problems or challenges with the jungle, because usually, and you probably know that as film commissioners as well, usually you start out, and as a location person, location manager as well, you read something in the script, and you think, okay, this is easy, we can do that. So you start out with, okay, we need a forest. And then Wes Anderson and Adam Stockhausen, the designer, comes in, and it's not any forest, it has to be very, very specific. And they're very, very specific about the plants they want to bring into that forest. And that's where obviously the German authorities and EU guidelines come in, because you can't bring in any not endemic plants into a German forest. So you need a special permit for every single plant, which would turn a German forest into something resembling a jungle. And that takes a lot of time. So what you want to do, first of all, just winding back a bit, so to explain how Wes Anderson works. So he likes to have full control of everything, and like the fullest control of everything. So that means that he doesn't want to go too far away from the stages. He basically wants to see any location he wants to shoot. They have to be visible from the stages. So that jungle was virtually 5 minutes away from Babelsberg stages. And we just had to make it look like a jungle. And obviously then you see, okay, there's a forest there, let's go there, because that's closest to the stage. Then the location manager, Klaus Dachelmann, noticed, okay, we can't even walk into that forest, not because of nature protection, but because it wasn't safe enough, because branches tended to fall down and stuff. So we did a GPS survey of every single tree in that forest, and had some expert look at it, and then had to cut down branches just to make it safe to go into that forest. First of all, with a director, and then with a full team. And that alone costs about 50,000 euros, just the tree cutting bit. Once we achieved that, we thought, okay, we're almost there, and little did we know. So as I just explained, you are not allowed to bring any like foreign or non-endemic plants into a German or any forest in Europe, I guess. So we thought, okay, then we may just stand the little trees and the tropical plants in the forest in flower pots, and then cover the flower pots so they don't interfere with the soil. And then obviously Wes Anderson and Adam Stockhausen came in again and said, no, we're not having that. No, they have to be dug in, which leads to other problems. So, and then at some point, or at a very early stage, Christiane actually came in, and maybe you want to take over now. So then it's not, and then it went step by step. So then we got the permit or the verbal agreement to get the plants in, and that was tough enough. Next thing was, yeah, but we want to crash an airplane there, or we want to put an airplane in there, in the jungle. And then obviously you have to get it there, put that metal stuff in there. We managed that. Next thing was, yeah, but it was an airplane crash, so you need fire. and that was in May, June of 24, with a high risk of forest fires. So that was another one. And then the last one, and that was really the toughest one. Yeah, but what's a jungle without animals? So they wanted butterflies, they wanted monkeys, they wanted snakes, and it was really interesting. And for location people, and I guess for you as well, it's always interesting who's in charge of what, because obviously you wouldn't know as a normal person. For example, we were allowed to bring in certain kinds of butterflies, but not others. We had butterflies DNA tested if they were allowed in there, because then they could interfere. If they had the wrong DNA, they would interfere with the homemade butterflies there and stuff like that, weird stuff. And so just to finish this off, so the very, very important thing for us was obviously to have a trusted friend, and we've known each other for over 20 years, I think, on our side to guide us along all the way. And then on the other side, from the authorities, it was extremely important that nothing of our wishes before they were actually declined or granted went out into the open. Because if that would have happened, we would have had real problems. Because if other parties started, like NGOs and environmental agencies, we didn't damage anything, the forest is still there. But obviously, if in that discussion stage somebody comes in and says, no, you shouldn't do it, it's dead. And in that case, maybe or probably the whole project would have been dead. If we wouldn't have gotten that forest, Wes Anderson would have said, okay, I'm leaving, I'm not doing it here. So it was extremely high stakes, and Christiane did a very, very good job. Thank you.
Yeah, Christian, tell us about your stress levels dealing with all of that.
Well, Markus was saying we came in a very, very early stage. I would say no, we didn't. We came in too late. But what's for sure important is to say that there are rules and laws, and they are there to be followed. That's the first thing, no matter whether it's a green space, it's a residential area, it's traffic. No matter where, you have to follow the rules. And none of those laws and rules were made for filmmakers. Yeah. So you have the problem. I think it's a unique problem. Any film commission could have been confronted with the same topics. I think what our main role in there was to make people talk and to listen and to check and to take their time to say, okay, we take it serious, we look at it. So what we had to do in the very first, and that's, I think the main thing we did was make people being open, not say, no, it's impossible, but to say, no, that's almost impossible. Let's try to find a compromise. Let's try to work around it, and there were certain measures we took. We, for instance, well, first of all, we wrote to them, we spoke to them, we called them. Then several appointments were arranged on the studio lot. They had a huge tent with all the plants, so that, I mean, the production was very professional, I must say. So everything was prepared, so the authorities came there to check every single plant. They looked behind the leaves, they looked in the soil, things like that, to make things possible. Because what's important about this is to say, first, there were rules to follow, then there was a way to find the compromise and to see how can we make things possible without working against the law, because that's their main thing, not that any, let's say, people that live there or other authorities come and say, you made a mistake, you're not allowed to issue this permit. So it's very bureaucratic, but that's something a production must know when they go in a highly preserved nature area. And on top of that, the authorities came to the studio lot, they watched it, and we were very proud to convince the production to give them the chance to be on set as well, to really fully understand what it means for a production to need an area like this. You know, authorities are authorities. They don't know how film works. They don't know what the deadlines are. They wouldn't understand why do things, everybody knows that, why do things take so long. So we really took the role of conflict management, mediation, translating the language of an authority into the film language and the other way around. And so in the end, we were all very grateful. They really did what they could to assist and to support the production. What Markus mentioned before was first there was this, then there was this, then the fire came and the steam came, and really when the fire came I thought, okay, I'm out now. It's too late. We call it, the other day Markus mentioned it, we call it salami tactics. So slice by slice, bit by bit, the new challenges come and the new information comes, and that's very important to be honest right away from the very beginning. Although they will be shocked and they will say no. So I understand these salami tactics, because when they say everything in the very first moment, no authority will say right away, yes, you can do that. So, but it's to make them trust you in a long term, you've got to be very open and honest. And I would always recommend a production to contact a film commission, because we have tools and ways to really kind of persuade them.
May I add something to that?
And just to finish this off.
Please, yeah.
But what if almost killed the whole thing, even after all those permissions, was that shortly before, and we were supposed to shoot there mid-May, shortly before we wanted to shoot there, they said, no, it's too cold. We want to push it for 2 weeks. And that was when the breeding season of the little reed warbler starts. And that almost killed it, really, because that's when any authority, any German authority would have to say, no, you can't do it. So, because that's where the European authorities come in. And so we managed to just slap into or postpone the breeding of that little warbler bird for 48 hours or so. So we managed, but it was really, really close.
But it's amazing to think this, fantastic sequence on screen. There's this amount of painstaking negotiation and convincing going on behind the scenes. And I think for all the panelists, I'm really interested in that. How you convince, and it's kind of this magical skill that film commissioners need to have in order to get people to say yes to things that they might not want to say yes to, or things that they might not understand. And I'd imagine certainly in all of the cases, these might be agencies or stakeholders that you might not know beforehand. So what's the trick? I mean, how do you make that case for production?
Well, that's what I wanted to add to what Christiane said. I think the salami tactic, this is the most hated thing for me as a film commissioner, because we as a film commissioner, we should know from the very beginning what's the maximum, and then because we know the people, we should decide when to tell them. Maybe not this is because we have a relationship with them and we know how much, this is very important, But because I have a relationship and I go to authority, I say, we need this and this. And if I or my team comes 2 weeks later and say, no, we need more, makes no sense. This is not good.
Yeah, I will also say that it's like trust. And also, if you, for Billionaire Island, to get into these fish factories, for example, they really needed to be patient, and they needed to listen to the fish factory and what are they doing, what is important for them. I mean, you can't just burst in there and because of sanitary reasons and everything. So just be open and listen to what they has to say, because their mission is not to make films. They need to make superb salmon, or are you going into a church? Their mission is not to make film, So to be humble for the first, do your research and listen. Listen to what they need and what they have to say, and be interested. I mean, generally, it's to be polite and no matter how big director you are, possibly they don't care, you know.
Yeah.
They have other things to do.
Yeah, I was going to say kind of the same. The Green Space Authority, it's not their first job is not to issue permits for filmmaking. That's the point, and we are kind of ambassadors for the filmmakers because they need to make their films. They need green spaces to film there. Where should they do it if not right on location? So we are ambassadors for the filmmakers, and on the other side for the authorities to make the filmmakers understand what the problem of the authorities is in that case. So we are really kind of in between mediating. It's our main goal. On the other hand, we do that through events where we have usually, since COVID, it's very good. We have digital events where we bring in the authorities and the filmmakers to talk to each other, to explain what their needs are, to explain what their, let's say, problems are, what's possible, what's not, but to really, there must be a change in their minds and we want the authorities to be more flexible and to more customer thinking and orientated. It's really a service, and it's an economic potential for Berlin and the states surrounding Brandenburg. It's very, very important to make them understand if you don't issue the permit, then we have a huge problem. It's not good for the city of Berlin. It's not good for our people. They won't find any jobs anymore. It's really a kind of industry for Berlin, and so we all need to, and we need to understand, we need to support the authorities in educating the filmmakers to make them work as professional as possible to save time on the authority sides, because they have lack of staff too, and they don't have time to ask, oh, there's a mistake, oh, and this information, so you must shorten the time of work for the authorities through professional applications.
And in each of your jurisdictions, is it that economic argument that is most convincing when you're dealing with a stakeholder or an agency or whoever it might be who's reluctant or doesn't understand? Is it that economic impact of the production that convinces them, or does it differ?
Concerning Vienna, for sure, because tourism is huge in Vienna and brings a lot of economic impact. So that's a very strong argument for us, for sure. Yeah.
I would say that economical impact is, of course, very important, but I think there are other impacts that are equally important. Like for Freya, it was a lot about identity and to kind of feel that they do something together. And also, of course, the ripple effect with like tourism and everything, but it's also building up the regional industry, because unlike Vienna and Berlin, I don't have that big regional industry. For us, it's also important to build up that and to tell your own stories and to get them out. Yeah. So you have to have more than just the economical, although that if you don't have the other things, then it's really not in the core, you know. Yeah.
And sorry, Christian.
Just one thing I'd like to add. I think, yes, it's an argument they accept, and they do and they don't. But it's important to point out. But there are very simple things you have to explain, like you let's say, apply for a shooting permit, those are our dates, and then the authority comes and says, no, you've got to postpone that for 2 weeks. And then you have to explain, no, but that's just impossible. They really need to understand, you know, how film production was and what the economic effect there is, and why the actors will not be booked for those days. The whole logistics, they need to understand. So it's several points, but economic is always a good point to bring in.
And obviously, the bigger the names are, the more or the easier it gets, to be honest. A couple of years back, we hosted the Steven Spielberg film Bridge of Spies, around the corner from that forest, actually. And so that was a no-no as well, to get that bridge blocked. And but and obviously in the beginning you don't tell many people who's involved, but once you mention, okay, it's Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, then the tables turn and it gets much, much easier. And in the end, Angela Merkel appeared on the bridge just to shake hands. But those are very, very rare occasions. But usually, and obviously, with big names comes big money and a lot of pressure, because everybody knows if this thing doesn't go through, and if we get a no within, don't know, half an hour, it will be in the world press. And obviously everybody, the city of Berlin wants to avoid that, Babelsberg wants to avoid that. So that's why we try to keep, as I mentioned earlier, to keep these conversations informal as long as possible, and don't get a no, don't get the authorities to give us a no in writing. So as long as you're still on talking terms, it's fine, and you can actually work your way through it and make it work somehow. But the minute you've got a no in writing, it gets way more difficult.
True, it's very important for those big shots, I would say. But one of the main things for film commissions is to be there for any production. Big ones, small ones, regional productions, and it's as important to everybody to get a permit. So our services are always free of charge, and I don't care if it's a student's project, a documentary, commercial. For commercials, we need to assist commercials because they don't get funded, so they have a high financial risk as well. Of course, TV, streamers, series, and high-class cinema. We don't differentiate.
It's the same in Vienna. The Vienna Film Commission is other than other regional film commissions. We are also responsible for filming permits within the city authorization. So we are very well connected with actually every single department of the city government, and we know the people. And as Christiane said, everybody gets the same service, a student project, commercial, everything, because this is very important to us, because otherwise they would say, well, the big films, they get everything and you don't care for us. That's not a fact. Everybody gets the same service.
Well, some needs a little bit more.
Yeah. Maybe those who don't have the money need more, and then they get more, actually.
Got it. I just have
other things, different things.
Yeah. I just have one more question, then we'll ask the audience if they have any. And picking up on something you said, Christiane, around sort of conflict resolution between the production's focused on getting the production done, the agencies are focused on managing what they need to manage, and you're somewhere in the middle trying to make both sides work. I mean, Marcus, from a production perspective, how do you balance that? You're trying to get the shots every day, you're trying to keep things moving, and in the background there's a lot of negotiation and back and forth to have with different agencies. How does that get balanced during production?
I think that is part of the nerve-wracking process, especially for location managers, because they are like the foreign ministers of the locations of the production, but also the interior ministers of the production. So they have to be very careful about what they communicate to the outside world, but also what they communicate to the interior, to the director, to the production. So that lets them age very, very quickly. Because obviously you don't want to tell your production people immediately, oh, we don't get that location. We will try as long as humanly possible until you can't deny that you're not getting it. And obviously, every half hour somebody comes in and says, and did they answer? And did we get the permit? And you have to say, no, they're on holiday or whatever. So that's the tough balance you have to keep. But Yeah, and I think that's about it. But that you have to keep mentally sane in the whole process, because you get, as a location person, you get bombarded from all sides, and you're in the eye of the storm, or should be.
Yeah. I think what's very important is to get some. Well, we film commissions really hate to say no. Sometimes we have to say no, sometimes we try again to solve the problem, and then we come back and say, well, I'm so sorry, I couldn't do anything to help you. So for us, and there Berlin, and similar to your regions too, Berlin and Brandenburg, we have very strong political support. And in Berlin, we are based, kind of financed and authorized by the governing mayor of Berlin. He has an initiative called Film Friendly City of Berlin, and there it's stated that all Berlin authorities and locations like residential area, housing agencies, that they've got to be film friendly. This is very important for us to have a political statement saying we want you to be film friendly, and we have the authority, we have the task to get that done into praxis. You know.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a sentence in my mind by Tom Waits: "Don't burn your friends to the filter." And as a film commissioner, I feel I need to protect my region as well, because the locations that I have, the people that I'm engaging with, is also my friends, and also the producers are my friends. So we are in the middle. We need to be neutral, but we also need to protect the locations so that, okay, they want to have another film production coming. So sometimes a film is not going to get that location, you know, because it's more important to protect it. And this is something that we need to think about a little bit more, because we want it to be sustainable. We want the production to come more and more. If you have allowed productions to come and they go, I'm never going to have a film production again because they did too much, it was too far, then you have burn your friends to the filter.
Yeah, got it.
But that's the ambassador. I mean, when you are we are ambassadors for the authorities too. We speak both languages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes you lose. Even we too lose. Like the year before, Babelsberg did Mockingjay, like a Hunger Games film, and they wanted to shoot at a small lake outside Berlin. And we worked on that for, I think, 9 months to finally get, and that's obviously another production thing. That first of all you say, okay, we want to shoot at that lake which is open to the public beach, blah blah, and we just want to have it for a day. And then they say, no, you don't get it. And then you say, okay, we don't come with 300 people, we just come with 100 people. And then we toned it down. We don't come with 100 people, we just come with a plate unit. No way. And we just want to take a picture there. No, you're not allowed to take a picture there. Not a commercial picture. And we finally gave up on that one and went to Poland and shot it there. So it does happen, no matter how big the production is or how big the names are.
I'm just going to pause there.
And that was just that person in charge who just would refuse to talk to us. Boom, done.
We have about 5 minutes. So I want to make sure we do have some audience questions. Let's start over here, please.
Hi, thank you for this passionate talk. I was wondering, I heard some numbers, like for €1 of production invested into a place, like the local community and economy get back something like €2-3. I completely forgot the numbers, but I'm wondering if you have some numbers in mind.
Concerning Vienna and Austria, that's correct.
Okay, so like for €1 production invested, you get €3?
3.
Okay.
In Norway, they say 1 to 4.7. So I think there's different.
Yeah,
you should know.
Yeah, we do a lot of this work, and it differs jurisdiction by jurisdiction. And yeah, production can be a very, very potent deliverer of economic impact, which is why we're seeing so many more authorities starting to understand that and support the sector.
Sorry, really quickly, and then I'm wondering, is there some kind of arms race between all those commissions? You know what I mean? Like then someone is like, okay, I put a 25% tax break, and then the neighbor says, okay, I will put 30%. You know what I mean? Like, is there an arm race a little bit? And you know, at some point, maybe you can't be too generous.
From my perspective, anyway, I don't know what the panel thinks, but I'd say no. I think it's so, you know, production decisions, you know, incentives are very important, but things like locations, the stability of the jurisdiction, personal connections. So I think, you know, and each incentive has different eligibility and different conditions. So I think there's a lot beneath the headline rate that impacts that, I would say.
I don't know whether I got your question really right, but we are, the German film commissions, we are all based within regional film funds, and then on top of that you have the federal funding scheme, and Germany right now is fighting for a very automatic tax rebate because there is competition and there's big competition, and then as soon as there are too many hurdles to take and as soon as it's more bureaucratic and more difficult, then of course it's easy. Apart from maybe the Castle Schönbrunn, it's so unique you cannot shoot elsewhere. Of course you can, everybody is replaceable. But what I think producers look at, where do I get most money? On top of that, the right locations, good crew, English-speaking crew, and so on. So the values of production do still play a big role, despite of the financial competition, of course. But money comes first, will always come first, but right after that, the rest.
Please.
Hi, this is for Marcus. Have you considered in the theme when you were searching for the forest? Have you considered virtual production as a possibility?
Not really, because it's especially for a Wes Anderson film. Every little thing gets manufactured in real life, so you can actually touch it, and the actors can walk through it and stuff. So virtual production wouldn't work for him, definitely.
But
obviously it makes in the fantastic art department. But obviously that would come to mind, but not for his films.
I think we've got time for one more question, if there is one. No? Okay, well, I think we're going to be finishing on time then. I'm sure we could keep talking for the rest of the day about the issues that have come up, but thank you all so much. We've covered reed warblers, salmon. Marcus will be checking that the plants behind you have the right permits. But thanks again to Venya and Adrian and EUFCN. Thank you.